And I'm sitting here with Bob Weiner. He's a national public affairs and issue strategist. Also worked in the Clinton cabinet or in the Clinton administration. Bob, thanks for taking time for me.
Rick, it's a pleasure. And as far as Perry, Rick Pe, what's his last name? Rick Pe. I can remember two syllables. I can't remember the third one. Rick Pe. I mean, that was his problem. People thought he was stupid.
Well,
that was the deal.
Will he be able to find his way home now?
And as far as Gingrich, people now realize he's creating the party of the wife swapper and the child janitor. And as far as Romney, unbelievable what he's doing with let Detroit go bankrupt, let housing hit bottom, corporations are people, $300,000 isn't much money, and I paid half the taxes of everybody else, and I want to cut it more. So they are so weakened now that we've really achieved something.
Do you think that the tax rate thing and the Cayman Island thing
yeah.
are the destruction of Romney?
Well, the vulture capitalism of Bain is the bane of his existence. It's true that, of course, we live in American capitalism, and we're proud of it, but we're not proud of taking that capitalism to the point of destroying the pensions and destroying the jobs. Romney tries to say, well, Obama did it with Detroit. No, he created a success out of Detroit. He didn't close the factory and leave them closed. He created now the best item in the news is that GM has now just gotten back to number one in the world, yep. And they're 11% higher than Volkswagen in sales, some 9 million cars last year. That's a huge success. That's not like losing, thousands of jobs. And Romney is so undercounting what he did, by the way. He can't even keep a straight count either on his taxes. You really want that, by the way, for somebody who runs the budget of the country.
I want to see it. I want to see his tax returns. I wish he would do like his father did. You released 12 years of it. Like he said, like the guy from the debate said, for 1 year you can jerry rig anything. But let's see the 12. And be honest about it. Look, if he were to come out and say, look, these are the rules of the game. You don't like the rules of the game, change it. But I played by the rules, and I made all this money, and if you don't like it, too bad. I understand that.
That's what Gingrich did.
But this nonsense of saying, hey,
Gingrich made millions,
I'm a job creator, and all this BS.
Gingrich said, I made $3 million, and I paid $1 million in taxes. Here it is online. We're done. We're done. But with Romney, actually, he's afraid of what it'll show. That's why he's been hiding. The offshore accounts that you mentioned in the Caymans and Bermuda, and the fact that all of his money is in this investment, and yet he wants to talk about how he represents the middle class. I loved how he said, I'm unemployed, I'm like you. Really?
I loved last night when he said, I lived on the real streets.
Yeah.
What real streets? I went to dinner last night here in D.C. and a homeless guy walked by asking for money. Do you think Romney was ever on that street? No. Yeah. He grew up in a gated community. He grew up on gold-plated streets. No street that I walked on.
Romney in jeans is like Donald Duck with a bow tie.
But, is it that we ask too much of these folks, though? I mean, he is who he is. And we should know who he is. He's an elitist. Do we have to put him through this pandering to us and trying to make us believe that he's like us? Can't we just go, he is what he is, and we're going to vote for him being the elitist that he is and pursuing that? Can't we just get by that at some point? Or do we have to do this?
There's movement now. Obama was 2 up, now he's 5 up, and that's before Romney's most recent gaffes. So there is movement, but this thing is close because those Republicans are going to play. And I have a pet peeve that I mentioned to you off air. The debate moderators are just giving the Republicans a free ride. And you talk about last night, it just bothers me to let them. It's like Harry and Louise, how they ultimately destroyed Clinton's health care bill, and then they do the same kind of thing and they destroy the current one, even though it always starts off with 15 points in favor by the American people wanting a health care provision.
Right.
Now, how can the debate moderators only ask the Republican candidates their differences from each other and fail to ask them how they would differ specifically from Obama's successes in foreign and domestic policy, like taking down bin Laden, Laki, Gaddafi, reversing Bush's bleeding of 750,000 jobs a month, rescuing the auto industry and the country's financial institutions, and putting the country back to 22 straight months of increased jobs and improved GDP? How do they not ask that specific contrast?
I'll tell you why. Simple. They don't want to be accused of siding with Obama. They don't want any good things to come out. They don't want to be accused by the Limbaughs and the Becks and the Hannitys and all the right-wing megaphones for the mega-rich that somehow they're touting Obama's success.
But they are supposed to be the foil to the news that's happening, to the claims of the person they're interviewing. That's a good moderator. That's a good media person. No matter what the position is, they should be the accurate foil to the other side to ask how would you respond. And they are not doing that. When you talk about health care, for example, why aren't they asking them what they would do about the 2.5 million children? They want to repeal Obamacare, which, by the way, as you said off air, is a badge of courage. But what would they do about the 2.5 million children now receiving care on their parents' plans, or the fact that half of Americans have pre-existing conditions, that 50 million seniors are now, because of the bill, having more of their drugs covered, life-saving drugs that used to be in the donut hole, that prevention is covered, that people for the first time are covered for life, and that without the bill there would be 30 million more people without health insurance, which all the studies, and most recently Harvard, say would die sooner. Just give all that away when we finally match whatever every other civilized nation gives its people. So that's what the moderator should be doing, is saying, how do you answer that?
Simple.
Yeah?
Pay or die.
Pay or die.
Pay or die.
That's what Ron Paul said.
We're going back to the good old days. Back to the good old days.
Grassley's death panels.
Either you can afford it or you can't. And that's how we thin the herd.
You know, and
that's conservative world, though, isn't it? If you can't afford it, sorry, move on. Next.
Rick, the myth that we have the best health care, and they keep saying it, it's just not true. We are in the 40s in life expectancy and infant mortality, and we pay twice as much as every other country on earth because we're paying the insurance companies, and they're not. So what are we doing to ourselves in this great country we created, that the revolution fought for, that we are so proud of?
We're talking about Newt Gingrich's bedroom habits. Because that's what's important to us.
I actually agree with him that to lead off the debate with that was really slimy.
But
that's why he's moving toward a win in Carolina, by the way.
That's the important
stuff,
stuff, man. The important stuff is the nonsense, the distractions, the little shiny thing that helps put us to sleep at night.
But the corollary to that is that what the Republicans will do is gay marriage and abortion and make those huge issues, and instead of the economy and the fact that Obama is on the right track creating job creation, and that the Republicans are obstructing the infrastructure jobs bills, the first offenders jobs bills, every jobs bill he's ever put forward, they've obstructed and filibustered, and then they want to say that he doesn't have a jobs plan after they're the ones who filibuster the jobs bills. So they don't want that to be out there. They want the social issues that deflect you from knowing about what really is the primary issue that the Americans care about. And you know what? It isn't working. That's why the polls show that by 15 points, people think that the Republicans are obstructing Congress, and why there's a real chance that Congress has a 9 to 14% approval rate, so that Hugo Chavez, Fidel Castro, and Richard Nixon are more popular than the Congress now.
Wow. Yeah, I saw that 84% disapproval rating. And I go, where do you go from there?
That's a high poll in terms of the 16. The polls that I've seen show 9 to 13 approval for the Congress.
And again,
and where you go from there is a switch in the Congress, because when it's shown that before in the last election and the one that the Democrats took over for, we're talking 96 and 2004, in those flip elections, those were exactly the kind of numbers that were out there. So we have the opportunity for a flip. The tweak is that the Senate is ours this time, and people will probably see, I think Reid has a good chance of holding on, change the House back to us, but because of the obstructionism and the filibusters, Reid has an excellent chance that the people aren't stupid and won't just go anti-incumbent. They'll actually support the Senate Democrats.
Well, that's the hope, because I got to be honest, in looking at the races, I'm right. afraid that they're going to lose. I mean, you're looking at 23 to 10.
We have 2-1 the races that are the holdings that are ours versus the Republicans, and that makes it much more difficult for us to hold. But it can be done in the case of a national mood landslide.
And again, you listen to all of these attacks, and I've called it the No Rights at Work agenda.
Right.
We see in Indiana right now, they're pushing this theft of collective bargaining rights away.
But look what Wisconsin just did. Look what they did. 1 million signatures.
Absolutely.
They had a half a million.
Fantastic.
They probably will replace Walker, and that's and the other people that supported Walker.
But what I'm afraid of comes out of that, and what scares me to death, is the guy that they're gonna run against him is a guy that nobody wanted before. And
is that clear, or is there going to be a primary? Because I saw Rachel interview a woman who looks pretty good, too.
There's a number of people.
So
I think David Obey's running. But
that's not bad. I like Obey.
Recent polls have put this other guy at the top of the polls. And the Democratic Party is pushing Barrett, who is the mayor of Milwaukee. To me, it would be a huge letdown from all this activism and all these boots on the ground to then go, this is what we worked for, this guy.
But he will restore union rights, and he will restore health care care and education money.
I hope so.
You got to look at the policies. I'm not going to sit here and damn the Wisconsin voters' choice. If that's actually what the polls show, these are the people that, with thousands and thousands of them, surrounded the state legislature. So if that's where they want to, congratulations.
We were the only radio program in the country to broadcast.
Good for you.
Broadcast from the Capitol, inside the Capitol.
Yeah. So if that's where they want to go, Rick, then so be it. If that's their candidate, we don't all have to be firebranders to be an effective candidate.
I agree with you. All I'm saying is that if he's the guy, there'd be a little bit of a letdown for me. That's it.
Let's hope it's not for the Wisconsin voters.
I hope so. So let's go back to this shiny thing in the room, the whole thing about Gingrich.
To create the party of the child janitor and the wife swapper.
I think the child labor question is a much bigger one than what his little dalliances were.
Of course.
Is that the direction the Republican Party wants to take us?
It is the direction.
Back to the 90s, the 1890s?
Yeah, I was going to say, which 90s? Right?
Yeah, I mean, to where we accepted children working in factories and the looms and mines.
At less than minimum wage.
Yeah,
that's why you can get 30 of them for the price of what the janitor costs.
Well, they've got little hands. They can do such intricate work, I guess.
Yeah. So that's where he wants to take it. Gingrich is very good in fighting and creating an enemy. He created an enemy of the media. He creates an enemy of his opponents. He's been brilliant at that. But this is a guy who was thrown out from being the House Speaker because of a $300,000 violation and the fact that he created books and checks and all the kinds of things that the House didn't want. So he was thrown out for ethics violations. I mean, people have to remember that record will be up there. We'll put it out there in lights and bullets on the internet and on the TV ads. So they better be careful to get what they wish for. Romney, we know all of his failures. We just tick them off. So it's an amazing situation they've put themselves in.
Last question I've got for you: are you surprised at the venom of the Republican primary at this point? Because I got to be honest, over Boehner. Because after all, that is what they've been pushing for 30 years. I mean, it's their policies that they're now condemning because he did it well.
I don't think even Republicans want vulture capitalism. The dear departed Rick Perry's good word. I don't think even they want people that take a company over and kill their pensions and kill their health care benefits and fire thousands of people, and then 30% of the companies go out of business. I don't think even Republicans want that policy. That's not a success. Romney so undercounted the people that lost their jobs. There's thousands and thousands of them, and the companies that went. When 30% of the companies go out, you're not talking about 120,000 jobs created, and he said 10,000 lost. You're talking about 40, 50,000 jobs that were lost.
And even the jobs that he created, is that the America we want? If you give him credit for Staples and Sports Authority and Domino's Pizza, if you give him credit for that, are those the jobs that we want in this country? Is that the direction we want to be? I don't think
That's
so.
Right.
I'd like to make things again.
And by the way, his lies. First, he tried. He will say anything. First, he lied and said when he was the head of Bain, and then it turns out his SEC filings add 2 years as the attack ad said, in fact, and why they wouldn't pull the ad, because it was true. He signed his name 2 years later saying he was still the head of it. So he was running it while he was doing whatever else he was doing. Or he lied. Pick one.
Amazing stuff. Bob Weiner, I appreciate the time. It's always great to talk with you.
You too, Rick.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. We're shaking hands, by the way.
All right, quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.